Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Friday, January the 26th, 2024. Been looking at 2 Corinthians, chapter 4, verses 5 through 7. That was one of our readings this past Sunday. Of course, my whole theme on Sunday was, it's not about us. And then, kind of related it to what Paul says here. We do not, or as I said in the old RSV, for what we preach is not ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord. It's that seventh verse, though, that now I want to focus on today and tomorrow a little bit, where Paul says, so it's, for we do not preach ourselves, we do not proclaim ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, with ourselves as your slaves for Jesus' sake. But verse 7, he goes on to say, but we have this treasure in clay jars, so that it may be made clear that this extraordinary power belongs to God and does not come from us. Clay pots, cracked pots, as some would say. Sir Oliver Franks was a distinguished British gentleman. He served as a professor of philosophy at Oxford, was a president of several different colleges, at one point even the chairman of a major bank. And if that resume was not enough, Sir Oliver Franks also served for a time as the British ambassador to the United States. And this was perhaps his most demanding job of all, since he served as ambassador immediately following the Second World War, at a time when the Cold War was just beginning and tensions with the former Soviet Union were escalating. Well, as ambassador to the U.S., Sir Franks was in touch often on a daily basis with the American president on one side of the Atlantic and the British Prime Minister and the Prime Minister of Great Britain on the other. And in this capacity, he was also the confidant of some of the most powerful people in the world. And therefore, he frequently needed to get urgent, important, top-secret messages back and forth between Washington and London. Now, it was far too risky to make telephone calls. The line was almost certainly bugged, even in that day and age. And so there was a diplomatic pouch that went back and forth each day, bringing confidential documents by air across the Atlantic Ocean. And that was the method that he used for most of his important and confidential messages. But when something was really confidential, utterly and completely top secret, he wouldn't trust it to the diplomatic pouch, which everyone knew was important and therefore might try to somehow intercept. And so in these instances, he would put the letter or document in an ordinary envelope and then send it through the regular mail. You see, he gambled that no one would ever imagine that an ordinary envelope sent through the regular mail would be carrying such a top secret letter or document. Well, in our reading today, what the Apostle Paul is basically saying here is that God has done pretty much the same thing. In other words, that there's absolutely no chance of anyone ever confusing the extraordinary content of the envelope with the very ordinary and unremarkable envelope itself. The messenger or the vessel that carries the message is not important at all. What matters vitally and urgently is the message itself. We have this treasure in clay jars, wrote Paul, so that it may be made clear that this extraordinary power belongs to God and does not come from us. For we do not proclaim ourselves, he made perfectly clear. We proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord and ourselves as your slaves for Jesus' sake. And to put it quite simply, then, Jesus is the message, the utterly important and extraordinary message, while Paul himself and anyone who else proclaims Christ to the world are merely ordinary earthenware pots, nothing special or unique or noteworthy in and of themselves. And so Paul, in effect, is saying here that our heroes of the faith, our heroes in the Bible, as well as all the heroes down through the ages of church history, are just ordinary people like you and me, who have nevertheless been given the awesome privilege and opportunity of sharing God's extraordinary power and message with others. Born Angelo Giuseppe Roncalli in the year 1881 in a small country village in the Lombardy region of Italy, he was the eldest son and fourth overall in a family of 13 children. His parents, like most of the people in that village, were simple peasants who worked as sharecroppers. Despite such humble beginnings, however, Roncalli went on to earn a doctorate in canon law in 1904, and that very same year was also ordained a priest in the Roman Catholic Church. He later became the much beloved Bishop of Venice with a warm affection for working class people like his own family of origin. He was also remembered for developing social action ministries. And finally, at the age of 77, he was elected Pope, and thereafter became known as Pope John the 23rd. Well, despite the expectation, because of his advanced age, that he would simply be a transitional pope, he nevertheless had great energy and spirit, so it's not surprising that he then convened the Second Vatican Council, in which, in many ways, opened up the Catholic Church to the modern world and also ushered in a period of great change, particularly in worship and also in how the Catholic Church related to other Christian bodies, including Lutherans. And yet through it all, Pope John retained both his humility as well as his sense of humor. For example, when asked once by a reporter how many people worked in the Vatican, Pope John answered without missing a beat, about half of them. On another occasion, he admitted waking up one morning worrying about a problem, so he said to himself, I'll have to consult the Pope about this. And then he thought to himself, wait a minute, I am the Pope. And when a painter once came to paint his portrait, Pope John told the artist, if you paint my face, paint it warts and all. In other words, he didn't want to embellish or cover up the true image of himself. He wanted to be honest in all that he said or did. For we do not proclaim ourselves. We proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your slaves for Jesus' sake. Well, we'll continue a little bit more with that tomorrow, and several other people from church history who did not preach themselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord. Until then, take care. Have a great day today. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.